Hello, I am Tim. Welcome to Chinese Crimes, a channel dedicated to real-life cases in China. On February 15, 2018, which was the 30th day of the Lunar New Year in Wangping Village, Hanzhong City, Shanxi Province, according to local customs, the 30th day of each year is a day for visiting graves and worshipping ancestors. Like everyone else, after 12 o'clock noon, the Wang family was returning home after the worship ceremony. However, unexpectedly, a man wearing a hat and a mask appeared. He wielded a knife and stabbed Wang Zhongjun, 39 years old, straight, causing him to die on the spot. Then Wang Shuijun, 47 years old, was also pursued by him and stabbed, falling into the roadside ditch. It was horrifying. Within minutes, both brothers of the Wang family had died in front of many villagers. People couldn't believe what was happening. The perpetrator quickly left the scene and headed straight to the home of the victims, where the father of the two brothers, Wang Tutan, 71 years old, was sitting alone in front of the courtyard. Before he could react, he was attacked and killed on the spot. Immediately after that, the perpetrator took a gasoline can and found Wang Shuijun's car, poured gasoline on it, and set it on fire. As the flames blazed, the murderer left. As he walked away, he shouted loudly, "After 22 years, I have finally succeeded in revenge." Although the incident was unexpected, the perpetrator also wore a hat and a mask to conceal his identity. However, many villagers immediately recognized him. He was Zhang Cao, a villager with painful memories and always lived in resentment. The 30 centimeters long sharp knife he carried was the deadly weapon for revenge. As he walked, the sharp knife was tucked into his belt, so no one dared to approach to stop him. And when the police arrived, the murderer had disappeared. The police immediately sealed off the crime scene and began investigating. 3 members of the Wang family were killed: Father Wang Tutan, eldest son Wang Shuijun, and third son Wang Zhongjun. This was clearly an attack on the entire Wang family. Among them, the second son of the family, Wang Fuquan, had just had a girlfriend after his divorce. So fortunately, he was at his girlfriend's house and was not present at the scene of the crime. Many people advised him not to return to the village for fear that he would be in danger because Zhang Cao had threatened to find him to continue the revenge. Therefore, the police quickly took Wang Fuquan and other family members to a safe place. A large-scale manhunt was launched to arrest Zhang Cao. 3 days after the murder, on the morning of February 17th, he voluntarily surrendered to the police. Immediately after that, he was taken to Wangping village to reenact the crime scene. The homes of the perpetrator and the victims were on the same side of the road in the village, only about 10 meters apart, and from the second-floor window of Zhang's house, the whole scene of the Wang family's courtyard could be seen. During the interrogation, Zhang Cao revealed his motive for the crime. He said, "As I said when leaving the crime scene, there were only 5 words: revenge for my mother." The story that happened in 1996 was the tragedy that shattered both families at once. The death of Zhang Cao's mother, Wang Tubing, created a lot of controversy in the village. The relationship between the two families, Zhang and Wang, used to be very close. They worked together on the farm, helping each other in both work and daily life, to the extent that it made many others jealous. However, several issues later caused the affection between the two families to break down. The first was the signing of a contract with the village's rice processing plant, in which both families participated. The final agreement was that the Wang family would sign the contract in the first year, and then it would be Zhang family's turn in the second year. But when the Zhang family made some money in the first year, they decided not to give up the contract. This quickly led to a major conflict between the two families. Gradually, the Wang family felt that the Zhang family was having secret conversations with others, but they couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. Not long after, the two women in the two families became the first to start the conflict. In June 1996, a fiery brawl erupted right on the road in front of the house. From then on, the two families became sworn enemies. However, they did not expect this feud to escalate to the point of destroying both families. One late evening in August 1996, Wang Fuquan, the second son of the Wang family, was relaxing outside the house when suddenly Wang Tubing passed by him and spat at him but missed. Then about 10 minutes later, Wang Tubing returned and repeated the action on Wang Fuquan's face. At that point, he became completely enraged, slapping her hard in the face, escalating the confrontation to its peak. Both families rushed out and the youngest son, Wang Zhongjun, also joined the fray. Wang Tubing grabbed an ironing table from her daughter and hit Wang Zhongjun directly on the forehead. Then Wang Tutun, the father of the two brothers, shouted, "Beat her to death, or she will kill your brother." Wang Zhongjun grabbed a stick from the roadside woodpile and hit Wang Tubing hard on the head, causing her to collapse to the ground. Both brothers simultaneously attacked the woman. At that point, Wang Tubing gradually lost the ability to resist and lay helpless on the ground. Her husband, Mr. Zhang, tried to help her several times, but unfortunately he was also knocked down multiple times. Zhang Cao, the 13-year-old boy, hugged his mother, crying bitterly. The heart-wrenching cries of the child caused everyone to rush over, but it was too late. News of the conflict between the two families quickly spread throughout the village. Wang Tubing was unconscious and was taken to the hospital in the town. However, there they received an unexpected news. Wang Tubing had died. She did not survive because she had many life-threatening head injuries. After that, the family decided to bring Wang Tubing's body back home. The police immediately arrived at the scene and decided to investigate on the spot to search for evidence. They knew that the youngest son, Wang Zhongjun, had done it, so they released Wang Tutun and Wang Fuquan back home. Immediately after that, a group of forensic experts came to examine the body right on the street in front of Zhang's house. This attracted the attention of many people, including Zhang Cao, a 13-year-old boy. When witnessing the scene of the dismembered body, everyone felt scared. But surprisingly, Zhang Cao became extremely calm. He no longer cried and just quietly observed throughout the time. When the family brought the body back for burial, it was also the time when Zhang Cao began to experience the most painful days of his life. In December 1996, the case was brought to trial at the Nanchong District Court. The judge convicted Wang Zhongjun of committing homicide under the age of 18. He was also willing to confess and accept the consequences of his actions. However, due to the victim's provocation and some errors for which she was responsible, Wang Zhongjun's sentence was mitigated. After the trial, Wang Zhongjun was sentenced to 7 years in prison for intentionally causing injury resulting in death. Regarding compensation, the victim's family representative requested economic compensation of up to 100,000 yuan. However, the court decided that Wang Zhongjun was still a student, coupled with the difficult economic situation of his family, so they only awarded a discretionary amount for compensation. In the end, the Wang family was ordered to pay a total of about 9,640 yuan to the victim's family. However, the Zhang family spent up to 8,140 yuan for the funeral arrangements, so ultimately, they only received compensation of 1,500 yuan. The victim's family felt dissatisfied with the verdict, believing that something unfair had happened. Some witnesses during the trial were relatives of the Wang family, meaning they would be biased towards the defense, and their testimonies would be beneficial to the other side. Moreover, the eldest son of the Wang family held a high position in the local government. So many witness statements would not reflect the truth. The verdicts also followed the Wang family's narrative that all three involved in the scuffle, but only one juvenile was convicted. Immediately after the incident, the two families went back to their separate lives and never spoke to each other again. This homicide case became the topic of discussion among the villagers for a long time. At this point in Zhang Cao's subconscious, a deep-seated flame of hatred was ignited. In 2001, after graduating from junior high school, Cao enlisted in the military and was sent to Xinjiang. Life in the military was tough, but he chose to join. One time, the platoon leader asked the new recruits why they chose to enlist, and Zhang Cao answered that he wanted to build up his strength to prepare for avenging his mother. In 2003, Cao returned to his hometown, after being discharged from the military and started working in Guangdong to make a living. But life wasn't easy as he lacked skills and knowledge, so he was lured into an illegal den. Despite facing difficulties, Cao Cao remained cheerful. He didn't smoke, drink, or engage in debauchery, and when idle, he would just lie in his room watching TV. In 2005, he had a girlfriend, and by 2007, Cao Cao had built a new house and decided to add a second floor to make a bridal suite for himself. However, in the same year, he broke up with his girlfriend because he couldn't afford to get married after completing the house. Moreover, he couldn't let go of the hatred for losing his mother, so he feared it would affect her. In the first half of 2017, Zhang Cao Cao, aged 35, went abroad to work in Fiji. However, due to unfavorable working conditions, he returned home in August of that year. Cao Cao decided not to work anymore and spent time with his father until after the Lunar New Year. During this time, Cao Cao lived a normal life, meeting friends and relatives, but he always paid attention to the Wang family. The eldest son, Wang Shuijun, had been promoted, and because he was not directly involved in the incident, he returned home more often. The second son, Wang Fuquan, rarely returned to the village because he had moved away after graduating. As for the third son, Wang Zhongjun, he had completed his juvenile detention with 4 years of rehabilitation and 3 years of imprisonment. After his release, Wang Zhongjun graduated and earned a living in Xianan. The Wang siblings had repeatedly advised their mother to move away and not live there for fear of retaliation, but their father disagreed. He believed that the matter had been resolved through the legal system, and the youngest son had also been sentenced to 7 years in prison. They had officially cleared all debts with the Zhang family, so there was nothing to worry about. Every year, Wang Zhongjun rarely returned to visit his relatives' graves, but the Lunar New Year holiday of 2018 became a special occasion. On the 21st of the 12th lunar month, he returned to Wangping village and decided to stay. It was the longest 10 days that Wang Zhongjun had stayed in his hometown since the incident occurred. Everyone enthusiastically prepared for Lunar New Year, but no one knew that Zhang Cao Cao had devised a plan for revenge during that Lunar New Year. Before the incident occurred, there were warning signs, but no one paid attention to them. Cao Cao withdrew about 40,000 yuan from the bank and gave it to his father. At that time, he thought the money would be used to buy seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides. It was only later revealed that this was the entire sum that Zhang Cao Cao had saved over the years. Moreover, he also prepared a hat, a mask, a knife, a gasoline can, and other tools, waiting for the right opportunity to act. On February 15, 2018, Mr. Zhang left home early to visit the ancestors' shrine on the mountain, while Cao Cao was washing clothes at home and did not accompany him. When his father left the house, Cao Cao called his older brother home early for dinner, and then quietly observed the Wang family on the second floor of their house. His targets were Wang Shuijun and Wang Zhongjun. When they were returning from visiting the grave, when the opportunity arose, Cao Cao launched a sudden attack and killed both brothers on the road before using a knife to break into the house and murder Wang Tutan sitting at the door. Additionally, he saw other women in the Wang family, but he only looked at them and said, "Because you are women, I will not kill you." After committing the crime, he walked out of the village, threw the knife into a river, and then hid in the riverbank grass for the night. But he soon realized he couldn't run away forever, so Zhang Cao Cao decided to surrender. On January 8, 2019, Zhang Cao Cao's case was brought to trial at the Hanzhong Intermediate People's Court. Zhang Cao Cao shared with everyone about his painful childhood, when his mother died in his arms, and he also witnessed the autopsy, but felt helpless. He hoped the court would consider these factors. Moreover, before the trial, Cao Cao's father borrowed 150,000 yuan to request a psychiatric assessment from Beijing's evaluation agency for his son. According to the evaluation, Cao Cao suffered from delusional personality disorder due to the influence of the incident at the age of 13, leading to limitations in criminal responsibility. However, the court rejected the request for testimony from the 3 experts. The court believed that while Qing Chuan had been punished for injuring Cao Cao's mother, Cao Cao harbored resentment and committed the crime with cruel methods. Ultimately, the court sentenced Zhang Cao Cao to death. Although he appealed, on April 11th the appeal was dismissed, and the death sentence was upheld. On July 17, 2019, Zhang Cao Cao was officially executed. This case shook the entire region and sparked intense debate. Some argued that Zhang Cao Cao sought revenge for his mother, so he should have his sentence mitigated. However, others believed that killing 3 people could not be forgiven, regardless of the reason. News of Zhang Cao Cao's death has quickly spread far and wide. Wang Fuquan, the sole survivor in the victim's family, shared, "I am satisfied with this verdict, but Zhang Cao Cao's death cannot bring back the lives of my 3 relatives." In this case, there are no winners or losers, only pain and vigilance. Perhaps because Zhang Cao Cao loved his mother too much, his hatred blinded him and led him to commit such cruel acts. It's a sad story, but it also reflects some realities of life. Do you know of any similar cases?
On March 15, 2015, the Kelang District Police in Xianan City received a report from a resident. This person reported that his brother's family had been out of contact for 2 days with no response to calls or messages. The police went to the brother's house and knocked on the door, but no one answered. Suspicion loomed over them, so the police called a locksmith to open the door. When the door opened, a horrifying scene unfolded before their eyes. The brother's family of 3 had been murdered in the house. The police were immediately dispatched to the scene on the 10th floor of an apartment building in the Majiayuan area of Kelang District. The scene was truly gruesome. The bodies of the deceased were gruesomely mutilated and not intact, only parts left on the blood-stained floor. Tragedy struck the peaceful home of a young man named Wang, 32 years old, and his wife, Zhang, who was only 26 years old. The perpetrator came, and not only that, but also took the life of their beloved 3-year-old son. Looking at the house, there was no evidence to prove the perpetrator's unauthorized entry. The entrance and windows remained intact, not vandalized. This led the police to speculate preliminarily that the criminal was perhaps an acquaintance of the family. A special event occurred on March 14th, just 1 day before the police received the emergency call. At that time, they collected surveillance images from the surrounding residents and coincidentally discovered a suspicious man appearing at 6:59 p.m. on March 14th, entering the elevator at the family's apartment building. This man appeared to be about 20 years old, wearing a red shirt. Surveillance footage showed that he stopped at the 10th floor, then entered the victim's apartment. Analysts concluded that the suspect had enough time to commit the crime. More than 2 hours later, the suspect appeared again. At 9:45 p.m., he left the apartment building, but what was suspicious was that he had changed clothes. The original red jacket had been replaced with a gray windbreaker. He had the victim's leather bag on his shoulder and appeared extremely relaxed, as if he had no worries at all. The police quickly identified the man as suspect number 1 in this serious case. During the crime scene investigation, they found that the scene had been suspiciously disturbed. The victim's bank card, wallet, and personal belongings were all missing. Immediately, the police began tracing information about withdrawals from the victim's bank card. On the victim's bank card, there were some large withdrawal transactions on the day of the incident, totaling 1,300 yuan. The police wasted no time. They went to the bank and requested to review the surveillance camera footage. There, they could clearly see the suspect's face and even the bandage on his left hand. These photos became important evidence, helping investigators identify the suspect's identity. While the investigative team was focused on solving this heinous murder case, that night, the police received another report from the residents. According to the report, 2 mysterious wheeled suitcases were left in the hallway of 2 residential buildings in Nanjing, more than 20 kilometers away from the crime scene. This immediately attracted media attention, with the fairly heavy suitcases arousing curiosity. Upon opening them, the police and journalists were shocked to find dismembered corpses inside. The police quickly arrived at the scene and determined that the body parts in the suitcase belonged to the victims, members of the Wang family. This information was later confirmed through DNA testing. This incident caused a powerful shock because it indicated that Baotu might be the residence of the culprit behind the massacre in Klang district. The case had a significant and terrifying impact on the community. People were shocked and bewildered by the heinousness and cruelty of this criminal. The Shanxi Provincial Police Department and the Xianan City Police Department wasted no time and immediately put the case on the provincial and city monitoring lists since 2015. At the same time, they formed a task force to investigate. Police relentlessly pursued leads through monitoring in the community where the victims lived. They discovered, the day before, he brutally slaughtered a family of 3. The next day, he calmly returned to the scene to dispose of the bodies. The cruelty of the perpetrator was truly terrifying. A phone call to the police brought hope. A woman named Zhang Huan called and confirmed that the victims in the case were her close friends. Huan revealed suspicions that Li Bo, her boyfriend, was the perpetrator of this heinous crime. The reason is that after Li Bo committed the crime, he called Huan and confessed to killing a family of 3 that day, but never said anything more about it. The police began investigating the identity of this suspect. Li Bo was born on February 5, 1990, from Xianan, a person about 1.75 meters tall and slim. Immediately after being informed of the incident, the special forces quickly organized arrest and investigation activities against Li Bo. On March 18th, the Xianan City Police Office announced a reward of 60,000 yuan for anyone providing additional leads. News of this case attracted great attention from the people of Xianan. The task force quickly received over 2,000 leads, but not many of them were useful. In Li Bo's hometown, his mother was taking care of his 2-year-old son. Learning that Li Bo had committed a serious crime, the mother couldn't sleep for many nights. She constantly called and texted Li Bo, trying to persuade him to surrender, but received no response. Finally, the police found a crucial lead on the morning of March 23rd. Li Bo had fled from Xianan and headed west to Baotu City. The police immediately went to Baotu, sealing off all roads to capture him. Around 9 o'clock that morning, Li Bo was arrested while having breakfast. During interrogation, Li Bo confessed to the murder of 3 members of the Wang family. After the crime, he fled to Hamyang and then moved to Baotu. Li Bo found a small guest house in the town and planned to stay there. However, when his partner requested his ID card, he didn't dare to stay for fear of being discovered. Li Bo could only flee from that hotel and hide in a cafe for about 4 days. He often hid during the day and went out to find food at night. Although he disguised himself whenever he went out, he still couldn't escape the police pursuit. After 10 tense days, the shocking case that rocked the city of Xianan was finally resolved. So, what was the motive for the crime? Li Bo, who only completed primary school, had faced difficulties since childhood after losing his father and mother's remarriage. Although there was no stable job, his family was not in dire straits. Li Bo's mother and stepfather opened a guest house to make a living. Before entering the guest house business, Li Bo worked as a security guard at entertainment venues for a long time. In 2012, when Li Bo was 22 years old, he married and had a son with his wife. However, since July 2014, the married life did not meet Li Bo's expectations. Li Bo met Zhang Huan, a woman from outside, and began a romantic relationship with her. Living with Huan, Li Bo's living expenses suddenly increased. He not only had to meet Huan's needs, but also support his own family. However, Li Bo was often lazy and had no stable job. Support from the family was simply not enough for both of them. This made Li Bo feel unable to take care of his lover. Driven by greed and desire, Li Bo planned the brutal robbery. His 2 victims were Zhang and Zhang's husband, who worked in a state-owned enterprise. In early 2015, while Li Bo was browsing Huan's mobile phone, he coincidentally discovered a post by Zhang on WeChat. The beautiful images and luxurious life that Zhang shared sparked evil thoughts in Li Bo's mind. In a state of financial shortage, Li Bo conceived a wicked intention. To gain the victim's trust, Li Bo lied that his phone had malfunctioned and wanted to borrow Juan's phone. After receiving the phone, Li Bo impersonated Juan and sent a WeChat message to the victim, saying that he wanted to buy 2 boxes of facial cleanser but had an urgent matter and couldn't go to the store. The victim trusted and agreed to help. They arranged to meet around 6 p.m. Li Bo went to Zhang's house to pick up the items he had asked to buy earlier, claiming to be Juan's lover and feeling familiar. The victim's family warmly welcomed Li Bo. He was served tea and invited to stay for a chat. After sitting at the victim's house for more than half an hour, Li Bo almost completed his goal. The family still had no suspicions of him. However, Li Bo felt it was time to act. Suddenly, he grabbed the homeowner Wang by the collar and threatened him for money. Wang, the homeowner, resisted and called for help. This situation panicked Li Bo, and he used a knife to kill Wang in front of everyone. Zhang appeared and witnessed this horrifying scene. She was terrified and stood frozen in place. Li Bo demanded Zhang to hand over her purse, inside which there were 500 yuan in cash and 2 bank cards. Not only dissatisfied, Li Bo also threatened Zhang to get her bank card passwords. While Li Bo was recording the password, Zhang stood up and ran away. Li Bo chased and caught her, but she screamed louder. Li Bo immediately turned into a ruthless and inhumane person as he killed Zhang. Then, to cover his tracks, he had no mercy for the family's children and proceeded to kill the remaining 3-year-old child in the family. After the crime, Li Bo eagerly went to withdraw money from the card and locked the door before leaving. However, he did not expect that Zhang's group of friends, seemingly wealthy, had only 1,300 yuan on the card, totaling 1,800 yuan stolen, including the cash he took on the spot. This was completely different from what he had initially expected. He felt very unhappy and decided to return home to search for more. But then, he found nothing. He not only did not receive the money, but also committed a major crime. To avoid being caught, he came up with the idea of destroying the corpse and erasing all traces. Around 9:22 on March 15th, Li Bo returned to the scene of the crime once again. This time, he bought sandpaper in advance and wore a mask to disguise himself. Li Bo cleaned up the house and then found 2 suitcases with wheels at the victim's house. He dismembered and put the bodies into the suitcases. At this point, his mind was blank. He called his lover Juan and confessed that he had killed someone. It was too late for remorse. He dared not return to his family. He was scared and ran to a place called Nanjing Village. He threw 2 suitcases onto a secluded road. Then he took 1,800 yuan and fled in a black car. Because Li Bo had worked as a security guard in a karaoke bar and enjoyed watching crime documentaries, he had learned many escape methods from murderers in TV shows. When he saw the police and police cars on the road, he didn't show any fear. He hid in a 24-hour cafe and dared not leave. He received messages from his mother demanding him to surrender. He also saw his own wanted notice online. However, he never considered surrendering. But eventually, he was caught when he went out because he was too hungry. 1 year and 3 months later, the case was brought to trial at the West Anhui Provincial People's Court. Li Bo constantly defended and argued before the court. He claimed that he had no intention of killing anyone and did not plan before breaking into the victim's house. But the victim's cries for help prompted him to act. However, in the half hour from the time he entered the house, drank water, and chatted until he committed the murder, Li Bo never gave up his intention to rob and always looked for opportunities. After facing various pieces of evidence, Li Bo finally pleaded guilty in court. On June 14, 2016, the West Anhui Provincial People's Court sentenced Li Bo to death in the first instance trial. He was deprived of political rights for life, and all his personal property was confiscated. At the same time, the relatives of the victims were compensated for funeral expenses and other expenses up to 83,178 yuan. In September 2017, Li Bo was executed. A profound lesson about sex, money, and human nature. Li Bo did not receive proper education from a young age and became a lazy person. The evil nature of human beings will easily emerge when faced with temptation. Li Bo deceived his lover and lived with her without caring for his family. He only coveted other people's money and wanted to seize it. Remember, what you sow is what you reap. No one gives forever, and if you do something, there will be consequences. What do you think of today's case? Leave a comment below.
I believe that those who watch this video are very passionate about detective stories and crime cases. So, do you believe in justice? Surely you can't help but feel relieved or excited when the perpetrator of a case is brought to light and punished for their actions. Because in your mind, the victims are extremely pitiful, having their futures and even lives taken away from them. However, sometimes exceptions occur. Both the perpetrator and the victim have their own hidden sides. So who is the most pitiful in today's story? On the afternoon of March 15, 2008, a railway security guard was conducting a check along the Kunshan railway line. At that moment, a plastic bag lying on the roadside grass caught his attention. But when the security guard opened the bag, a horrific scene unfolded before his eyes. Inside was a head covered in blood. The head was so severely injured that the white skull was visible. This sight terrified him, and he quickly reported it to the police. The police immediately rushed to the scene upon receiving the report. But after thorough investigation, they only found 2 skull fragments, one large and one small nearby, and no other body parts were found. In this case, the police concluded that this was not the first crime scene, nor was it a suicide or a traffic accident on the train. It was undoubtedly a homicide and body disposal. So who is the murderer behind this? Who killed and handled the body so brutally? The police began to investigate eagerly, but the evidence at the scene was very limited, with only a head and 2 skull fragments found, nothing else. Is this one of those cases where the perpetrator can never be found? Will the Chinese police be stuck in a deadlock like this? Around 4 p.m. on the same day, a team of criminal investigators and technicians from Shanghai quickly arrived at the scene. After several surveys of the environment near the railway area, the basic investigation team determined the method of body disposal by the suspect, throwing the victim's head from the train. This was based on the perpetrator's perspective. Usually, if they want to destroy evidence, they must hope to throw it as far as possible, and the location should be somewhere with trees for cover. But this body part was found very close to the railway track. If thrown from a truck, it certainly couldn't be that close, except for the case where the space for throwing was too narrow, making it difficult for the perpetrator to use force. So, the window on the train was the appropriate position under these conditions. But it also raised a new question. Because railway security is very strict, how did the suspect avoid security checks and openly carry a human head onto the train? There were many small human skin fragments and blood stains on the railway track. These traces were linked to a 43-meter stretch. The assessment was made based on the rolling direction caused by the train's inertia. This head was thrown from a train carrying passengers from Shanghai. To further clarify this conclusion, technicians conducted an experiment. They took a sheep's head and threw it out of the window of a high-speed train. They found that the trajectory and landing state of the sheep's head matched the prediction. The police focused on investigating 57 relevant trains. However, these 57 trains were related to dozens of cities and nearly 50,000 passengers. Investigators checked surveillance videos from many stations along the railway line for the past 2 days, but unfortunately, they did not find anyone carrying a black plastic bag into the station or any related individuals in the surveillance videos. In the investigation, identifying the victim's identity is extremely important and considered a prerequisite for handling a case. It can narrow down the suspect for a more accurate investigation. That's why the victim's body parts were examined to determine their identity. However, what the police found was only a part of the body that was no longer intact. Even the skull was broken into 2 pieces. So could the police accomplish what seemed impossible? And fortunately, the police did. They invited Zhang Tan, one of the first criminal investigation experts appointed by the Ministry of Public Security, who can recreate the appearance of a criminal suspect through the memories of witnesses, and he has never failed in over 20 years as a police officer. More than 800 criminals have been arrested thanks to the portraits drawn by him. During this time, many major cases shocked the country, and he became known as the detective with the magic pen. The reason why his portraits can completely reproduce the appearance of a person is due to his excellent painting skills and meticulous study of human facial features. Of course, restoring skulls and faces is also part of his expertise. After years of research, he mastered the technology of skull restoration, also known as brain pan reconstruction. In 2008, this technology could only be demonstrated through portraits. Zhang Tan used his hands to touch the bones and then used a brush to restore the appearance of the deceased. As soon as he received the case, Zhang Tan began working quickly. On March 17th, just 2 days after the discovery of the body, the victim's appearance was restored by Zhang Tan. Shortly after that, over 10,000 reports with the victim's portraits were distributed to police agencies along the railway line, and over 40,000 flyers were posted at railway stations. On a late March day, a man named Wang Wenjie from Bangfu City, Anhui Province, contacted the police to report that his brother, Wang Wenda, had been missing for several days. Wang Wenjie stated that the portrait drawn by Zhang Tan not only matched the appearance of his brother, but also had a scar behind the neck, which coincided with his brother's. Immediately, the special forces began investigating the situation of Wang Wenda and conducted DNA testing, confirming that the deceased was indeed Wang Wenda. Wang Wenda, 48 years old from Bangfu, Anhui Province, was formerly a construction worker but became unemployed after gambling addiction. He divorced his wife a year ago. According to neighbors, Wang Wenda often went to Kunshan to gamble while he was alive. Wang Wenda had no stable job but relied mainly on gambling, earning all his money by deceiving others with fraudulent tricks. However, it didn't help him escape the cycle of debt. Countless people have tragically died due to cheating in casinos, so is Wang Wenda's death related to causing disputes with other gamblers. Investigators decided to focus on Wang Wenda's gambling associates. The first thing to check was whether Wang Wenda had any conflicts with anyone during this time. But as the investigation went deeper, the case once again hit a dead end when Wang Wenda's gambling associates were ruled out as suspects. The possibility of revenge due to gambling was ruled out, so who could have hated Wang Wenda so deeply that he was brutally murdered? At this point, a confession from a gambler who played with Wang Wenda gave the special team a new lead. Accordingly, on the night of March 10th, Wang Wenda answered a phone call and then left. The caller was his ex-wife named Zhao Suyun, who divorced him 2 years ago. Forensic examination also showed that Wang Wenda died around March 10th. The police followed this lead to find Wang Wenda's ex-wife. At that time, Zhao Suyun was living in a small house on the outskirts of Bangfu. During the investigation, the police noticed that she showed no concern about her ex-husband's death. However, they found no clues in her house. It was known that Zhao Suyun and Wang Wenda had lived together for nearly 20 years in an unhappy marriage with Wang Wenda, a gambling addict, lazy, abusive, and even adulterous. After the divorce, Zhao Suyun opened a small stationery shop to make a living. During the investigation, the police learned that before ending things with her ex-husband Wang Wenda, Zhao Suyun met another man named Wang Ban, also from Bangfu. Wang Ban, 40 years old, mainly operated motorcycle businesses in Hongkou District, Shanghai. Due to an unhappy marriage and being beaten and abused by her husband several times, Zhao Suyun eventually couldn't stand Wang Wenda anymore and filed for divorce, then later married Wang Ban. However, just when she thought she had escaped from this tormenting husband, he suddenly appeared. Wang Wenda returned, apologized, and expressed a desire to reconcile with Zhao Suyun. Knowing that she had a relationship with Wang Ban, he became angry and often caused trouble. Knowing she was living with Wang Ban, he often came to verbally abuse and disrupt. The neighbors around also confirmed this. So police speculated that a similar situation might have occurred on March 10th, when Wang Wenda came to her house. At that time, there was definitely a conflict between the two men, and perhaps Wang Ban killed Wang Wenda in a fit of rage. However, Wang Ban mostly worked in Shanghai, so if he wanted to kill Wang Wenda, he had to be in Bangfu, right? Surprisingly, when investigating Wang Ban's itinerary, they found that he had spent a considerable amount of time in Shanghai. However, he had set aside a day to return to Bangfu, and that happened to be on March 10th, the day Wang Wenda was killed. The police found no unusual traces at Wang Ban's residence in Bangfu. However, during the subsequent investigation, the continuous coincidences increasingly raised suspicions about Wang Ban. On March 14th, Wang Ban boarded a train from Shanghai to Taizhou. This train passed through the Kunshan area. The next day, the head of the victim, Wang Wenda, was found in the Kunshan section. They also found surveillance video at the Shanghai station on March 14th, which showed Wang Ban. At that time, he was clearly holding a bag, seemingly containing a spherical object. In 2008, when the incident occurred, security checks were implemented at train stations. However, during that time, there were often various reasons leading to lax security checks. It's highly possible that Wang Ban exploited this loophole to bypass security checks and continue his journey. And later, the police became even more convinced of their argument when reviewing the surveillance footage. It was clear that when leaving, Wang Ban was carrying a bag, but when he returned to Shanghai around 11 p.m., this time the bag was missing. An interrogation was opened with the suspect, Wang Ban. But when questioned, he flatly denied any involvement. It wasn't until the police found a handwritten letter in his room in Shanghai. The letter was written by him to his daughter, studying in Bangfu, a confession-like message to his own child. He expressed deep love for Zhao Suyun and admitted to killing his ex-husband, Wang Wenda. At the end of the letter, he hoped his daughter would forgive him for his actions. After confirming Wang Ban as the main suspect in the murder of Wang Wenda, the police immediately searched Zhao Suyun's residence because they suspected it might be the actual crime scene. Initially, they found nothing suspicious. It wasn't until the police searched the bathroom and moved the washing machine that they found a bloodstain the size of a grain of rice. Forensic analysis confirmed that the blood belonged to Wang Wenda. The police immediately arrested Zhao Suyun. After being interrogated by the police, Zhao Suyun confessed to her actions and recounted what had happened. Since she and Wang Ban had come together, she had endured continuous mental torment from her ex-husband, Wang Wenda. He even went to Wang Ban's house and threatened to kill his entire family. After being married for over 10 years, Zhao Suyun knew Wang Wenda very well. His words were never casual. Once he said something, he would do it. Therefore, to prevent any uncertainties, they both had to take extreme measures. They had to proactively escape from the threat of Wang Wenda. How, of course, the only way was to make him disappear from their lives. So, on the night of March 10th, 2008, Zhao Suyun proactively called Wang Wenda and invited him to her place. Then she and Wang Ban collaborated to kill and dismember him. Wang Ban was responsible for diverting the police's attention when transporting the victim's remains onto the train and leaving them at Kunshan. However, he didn't expect that his actions would also be caught by the law. On April 2nd and 3rd, 2008, Zhao Suyun and Wang Ban were arrested. Wang Ban was ultimately sentenced to death for intentional homicide, and Zhao Suyun was also sentenced to death, but with a 2-year suspension pending execution. Truly, after completing this case, there are many mixed emotions inside me. I feel both anger and pity, but also sorrow for the confused thoughts of these two individuals. Clearly, with what Wang Wenda had done, he was utterly despicable, and it could even be said that he was a scourge of society. However, if asked whether Wang Wenda deserved to die, I would answer no. In this world, everyone has the right to live, and this is clearly stated in the constitution of various countries. Wang Wenda did wrong, and the law will punish him. If not now, then perhaps in the future, he will surely pay for his actions. Everything has legal proceedings to ensure fairness and order for society. If everyone like Zhao Suyun and Wang Ban takes matters into their own hands and assumes the label of divine justice or eliminating evil for justice, what will happen to society? In conclusion, everyone has the right to live, to basic citizen rights, and above all to be protected by the law. Any threatening actions, even encroaching on those rights, are therefore illegal. I hope that after watching this case, we will have a better understanding and thoughtful consideration before deciding on anything. Because sometimes, just one wrong step can lead us down a lifetime of regret.
Now, let's observe the video clip. The horrifying scene you just witnessed was captured by the surveillance camera of a hotel. A woman screams loudly as she tries to flee from the room in the early morning. However, she's pulled back by a terrifying force. On February 8, 2015, just 10 days before the Lunar New Year, the Ma'ashan Police Department in Anhui Province received a concerning report. A man from Hefei, Anhui, reported that his wife, Mrs. Wang, had arrived in Ma'ashan 5 days ago to meet a close friend. Since then, he's been unable to contact her, and her phone has been turned off. It's worth noting that this female friend and Mrs. Wang had never met before. The couple are journalists, and they live harmoniously and are close to their neighbors. They jointly operate a hardware store in Hefei and have a stable income. He never harbored ill feelings towards others, and his life was very simple. However, his wife, Mrs. Wang, suddenly disappeared like this. Her family members are living in anxiety. Her 1-year-old child cries incessantly and searches for her mother. Upon receiving the report, the police immediately began to gather information about Mrs. Wang's identity. It was known that she arrived in Ma'ashan City on February the 3rd and stayed at a hotel located in the city center. The hotel's surveillance camera recorded a terrifying scene at 6 p.m. on the same day. Wang dragged her suitcase and approached the reception desk to check in. After receiving the room card, she entered the elevator and went up to the 14th floor to room 1453. It was a room with a large round bed. According to the hotel's records, Wang only stayed overnight and checked out on the next day. To find clues, the police continued to check the surveillance video. The camera only captured Wang's image in the hotel, but there was no footage of her leaving. The checkout time was recorded as 8:28 a.m. on February 4th. Furthermore, the surveillance camera at the front desk recorded the image of a man. He was wearing a jumpsuit and a cap. Along with that, 2 suitcases, one large and one small, also appeared in the image. After Wang's husband and friends in Ma'anshan were invited to identify the identity of the mysterious man, none of them knew who he was and could not provide any information about him. So, what's the connection between this man and Mrs. Wang's disappearance? The hotel is equipped with 24/7 continuous video surveillance systems. At 12:19 a.m. on February 4th, a man appeared in the surveillance camera image on the 14th floor. After exiting the elevator, he walked straight to room 1453. In his hand, he didn't hold anything. He went to the door and rang the bell, but received no response from inside. Next, he knocked on the door a few more times. Finally, when the door opened, he walked straight into the room. Because there was no image of Wang leaving the room during the surveillance, it was quite likely that she opened the door for the man. The man entered the room normally, without any signs of violence. He then left the room and returned after 10 minutes. This time, it was still Wang who opened the door. Finally, the terrifying scene was discovered at 2 a.m. The woman rushing out of the door in the image was Wang. As soon as she stepped out, she was pulled back by a hand from behind. The force of this pull was very strong. Both of her feet were off the ground, and it was clear she wasn't wearing shoes. This indicates that she ran out in a panicked and hurried state. By looking at her mouth shape, the police concluded that she was trying to call for help before being pulled back into the room. The door quickly closed, and from then on, Wang did not appear outside anymore. From these developments, the police concluded that Wang's disappearance was definitely related to this man. At 3:46 a.m., the mysterious man stealthily opened the door. He peeked out to observe the hallway, then closed the door again. By 4:45 a.m., the door opened, and the man stepped out alone. This time, he wore a hat and held keys tightly in his hand, heading towards the elevator. He descended the elevator and left the hotel, stopping at a cafe on foot. He bought a bottle of wine and quickly continued his journey. By 5:22 a.m., he returned to the room, this time swiping the card himself to open the door. At 6:43 a.m., he stepped out again and had an exchange with the receptionist on the first floor. In such a short night, he entered and exited several times. At 7:48 a.m., the man returned to the room 1453 for the last time. This time, he was dragging a large suitcase into the room. By 8:19 a.m., he left again to pull out the large suitcase. Simultaneously, he took Wang's small suitcase. This detail drew special attention from the police. The large suitcase he pulled was about 70 centimeters tall and 50 centimeters wide. Meanwhile, Wang's height was only about 1.48 meters. Theoretically, her body could fit into that suitcase. Combined with previous circumstances and experience from investigated cases, the police concluded that Wang might have been murdered. At 8:28 a.m., the man pushed the two suitcases to the hotel reception desk. He checked out and left, leaving a big question mark in the receptionist's mind. At this moment, the police decided to enter room 1453 for investigation. However, after several days had passed, the room had become messy, and many people had entered, complicating the investigation process. At the scene, the remaining evidence could not determine anything. However, after questioning the hotel staff, a new clue was discovered. On February 4th, after checking out, the housekeeping staff proceeded with their duties as usual. But when they reached room 1453, they found the room in disarray. The comforter on the bed was disheveled, and the bedsheet was no longer in its original position. In particular, they found some blood on the pillow. But the staff had encountered similar bloodstains during previous work, so they didn't pay much attention to it. They washed and changed the bedding as usual without much notice. Based on this clue, the police conducted on-the-spot investigations at room 1453. Indeed, blood had flowed from the core of the pillow on the bed. After DNA comparison, the police determined that it was Wang's blood. She had shared the room with a man, so what happened in the room that night? The police immediately informed all train stations, explored surrounding hotels, and checked all routes. They found that a man, after leaving the hotel, did not take a taxi as predicted. Instead, he pulled two suitcases and walked on the street. It could be assumed that he wanted to find an opportunity to abandon or hide those suitcases. Therefore, the most important thing was to monitor all his movements. Now, it was 8 a.m., the peak time of the workday. In case he wanted to move by public transport, the likelihood of him carrying two suitcases on a bus was low. Therefore, the police focused on checking taxis coming and going. After investigation, a taxi driver reported having a male passenger and his luggage seeming quite heavy. The driver got out to help him load them into the trunk. However, the passenger firmly refused and did everything himself. After getting into the car, the man asked the driver to stop and let him off at Hongqi Bridge in Ma'anshan. This was a place where many taxis converged to go to various destinations. Based on clothing characteristics, posture, and other factors, the police quickly realized that the person sitting in the front passenger seat was the one they were looking for. They immediately contacted the taxi driver via the license plate number. The taxi driver recounted that the man got out near a residential area in Shizu Town, Lingtai District. Nearby, there's a resettlement housing community, an area lacking surveillance cameras. With no information about the man's identity, the investigation became passive. Early in the morning after the incident, the man walked into a cafe. At 11 p.m. that same day, he appeared outside the hotel. From monitoring him at the cafe, they noticed he had used the internet at 7 p.m. The cafe's internet registration showed the man's name as Shenzhen. After comparing the photo from his ID card, the police confirmed he was the man who had entered the hotel. Later, he continued to move to the Lingtai town. With the support of local police, the police finally found his residence address. The police quickly deployed forces and were ready to arrest this criminal. One afternoon, Shenzhen confidently boarded a bus from Lingtai district to Guangzhou city, unaware that the police had been watching him throughout the journey, waiting for the right moment to apprehend him. Before he could make it home, Shenzhen was finally arrested on the bus. The surprise and fear were evident on the criminal's face as the police surrounded him. During the search, they found Wang's ID card and bank card in Shenzhen's bag. These pieces of evidence further proved his crimes. Taken to the police station, Shenzhen couldn't escape the pursuit of justice. Under pressure and fear during interrogation, he confessed to his crimes. From these confessions, the police learned that Shenzhen and Wang were not previously acquainted. They were just friends. However, he lost control for some reason and killed Wang. After the incident, Shenzhen left the hotel with the victim's body in a suitcase and buried it in a nearby forest. The police later found the burial site and collected more crucial evidence. Through documents and personal information, the police learned that Shenzhen was born in 1987 and lived in Lingtai district, Guangzhou city. Before the incident, in January 2015, he met Wang in an online chat group in Hefei. They were the same age, both feeling bored with their families and current lives. Through interactive conversations over a few days, they felt interested and decided to meet up. Wang, coming from Hefei, set foot in the big city for the first time and checked into a hotel. Meanwhile, Shenzhen kept a secret, ready to carry out his dark plan. And at midnight, the two met. As soon as they met, Wang asked Shenzhen to go downstairs to register with the hotel. Shenzhen left the room for a moment, but during that time, his intention changed. He wondered why bother to register. A twisted feeling overwhelmed him. He decided not to register any personal information and returned to room 1453. Immediately afterward, the two engaged in sexual intercourse. Shenzhen shared that after the incident, they easily chatted and suddenly brought up the issue of the room fee. Wang asked him to go to the hotel reception the next day and pay more than 200 yuan for the room. However, Shenzhen didn't bring much money and felt helpless. He didn't realize that this made Wang extremely angry. The two began arguing about who would pay for the room. At that moment, Wang's wallet was on the bedside table. Shenzhen had the idea to steal the wallet. At that time, the wallet contained over 1,000 yuan in cash and some bank cards. As he began threatening to ask for the bank card's password, Wang told him. Shenzhen was also surprised at how cooperative she was. Meanwhile, he was using his mobile phone to verify the authenticity of the bank card password. Wang decided to take the opportunity to escape from room 1453. She rushed to open the door and ran out of the room. Shenzhen was surprised and hurriedly chased after her, pulling her back into the room. She screamed loudly in the room, but it was too late, which made Shenzhen extremely fearful. He saw Wang's silk scarf lying near the bed and quickly tightened it around her neck. While Shenzhen was in turmoil, which led to Wang's death, he felt terrified. He hastily left room 1453. He then bought some wine to calm down. However, all the stores were closed. He went to the cafe he usually frequented and learned that there was no wine available. Finally, he bought a bottle of red and left. For the third time, Shenzhen entered room 1453 at 4 a.m. His mind was in chaos. However, he attempted to dismember Wang's body to evade feelings of guilt. At 6 a.m. on February 4th, he stepped out of the room 1453, determined to buy the largest suitcase possible and return to the hotel to resolve the issue. He then checked out and carried the two huge suitcases out of the hotel. Initially, he planned to throw the suitcases somewhere, but he realized there was nowhere truly discreet. He knew that any place he threw the suitcases would be quickly discovered. In the end, he decided to take them back to his hometown in Lingtai district to hide them. That was where he was arrested by the police the next day upon his return. Shenzhen, 28 years old, had been married for 6 years. People around him thought he was introverted and reserved. With a low level of education, he abandoned his family at a young age and worked at a construction site. Loneliness and pain in life led Shenzhen to the internet. In 2009, he met a girl online named Liu. They didn't take long to decide to get married. Initially, their relationship was very good, but the joy didn't last long. Shenzhen soon discovered his wife's illness, and she couldn't bear children. Despite being treated everywhere, her condition didn't improve. The illness spread and haunted their married life. Both of them felt disgusted with this married life. Moreover, Shenzhen was not good at communication and had difficulty expressing affection for his wife. They just tried in every way to maintain their marital relationship, even though they weren't happy. Just 6 years into their marriage, Shenzhen and his wife still hadn't found the joy of being parents. Neighbors and elders in the family kept criticizing and worrying. Shenzhen became increasingly frustrated in the prolonged gloomy atmosphere. He got used to seeking satisfaction in the online world, where he could communicate with others comfortably. And Wang's appearance relieved the pressure Shenzhen was facing, but this illicit reunion turned into a tragedy. Wang's husband could never have imagined that things would turn out this way. He didn't understand why his wife would put herself in such a dangerous situation, even risking her life. Wang knew nothing about Shenzhen. Simply chatting with strangers online laid the groundwork for a tragedy. For Shenzhen, lack of communication and marital relations drove him crazy. He decided to see marriage as a formality and overlook it. In a fit of madness, he plunged into a life of crime. Despite his regrets, he couldn't redeem his mistakes. His actions became intentional murder and robbery. On July 25, 2015, Shenzhen was sentenced to death by the Ma and Shan People's Court. The development of the internet has opened up for ways for us to make friends with new people. However, it also warns us not to make wrong decisions just because of fleeting emotions.
As time goes by, traveling becomes more and more convenient. However, ensuring safety in public places has become a top priority for people. Particularly, some public areas have been equipped with advanced security inspection devices. Security inspections, aided by modern tools, have the capability to detect various potential dangers, including contraband. However, who would have thought that one day, among the items passed through the security checkpoint, a horrifying image would appear, that of a human skeleton. On July 23, 2010, at 7:04 a.m., a man appeared at the Lamxiang railway station in Hubei. He was carrying a hard cardboard box intending to go straight into the waiting room, but was stopped by a staff member. The staff member signaled for him to place the box on the security inspection device to check. The man placed the cardboard box on the conveyor belt, then turned around and left. Immediately after, the security personnel noticed something unusual on the X-ray scanner. There was something suspicious inside the cardboard box. They identified something resembling an arm. The security staff stepped out of the office and sought another colleague for confirmation. Meanwhile, the man brought in a second cardboard box and placed it on the conveyor belt in the security inspection area. At this point, when the staff looked into the boxes, the situation became more serious. Images of rib bones appeared on the monitor. The man entered the waiting room and placed the two boxes side by side. At this point, the security inspector approached him and started talking to him. When asked about the contents of the boxes, he replied that it was meat and bones. The staff signaled for him to open the box for inspection. The man agreed and said he would place the two boxes next to the seat and go out to buy a ticket. But the man disappeared. Shortly after, the security inspector felt something was wrong and quickly called the police. So whose flesh and bones were in those cardboard boxes? Hello, I'm John. Welcome to Chinese Crimes, a channel dedicated to real-life crime stories in China. When the police arrived at the scene, they found a large cardboard box containing something. But it didn't stop there. There was also a small box containing mosquito coils branded Lanju. The police officers were all vigilant, opening each box without missing anything. When they opened the cardboard box, they found a black plastic bag inside. And the horrifying thing appeared. Before their eyes was a human corpse. The victim's death became more horrifying when two different boxes contained the upper and lower body parts but no head or organs. The police immediately sealed off the scene and began searching for the suspect who had brought those suspicious boxes. A surveillance camera inside the railway station captured images of this man. Instead of leaving the train station immediately, he entered the ticket office. After a while standing in front of the train schedule board, he left the camera's sight at 7:10 a.m. without knowing where he went. The video footage from the surveillance camera is very blurry and cannot clearly see the details of the suspect. The police could only temporarily sketch some characteristics about his appearance. According to the staff's account, he may have been over 50 years old, a middle-aged man, about 1.7 meters tall, and of average build. He was wearing light-colored clothes and carrying a shoulder bag, with no other clues to identify him. The city of Lamxiang is located at the intersection of Hubei and Jiangxi provinces, so the suspect could escape anywhere. This poses significant challenges for the investigation. The police were puzzled by the suspect's strange behavior, as he did not hide or bury the corpse near the crime scene like most other criminals. Instead, he carried two boxes containing the victim to the train station. Although the suspect's ultimate purpose remains a mystery, his daring choice and subsequent calmness in dealing with others, then calmly leaving the scene, raise questions about whether he intended to use the railway to transport the body or to cause chaos during the investigation. If this behavior does not follow the typical pattern of criminals, people will not know exactly what motivated him. However, it is certain that the suspect has a very strong psyche. The story of hiding a corpse in a cardboard box quickly spread and caused horror in the small village of Lamxiang. While the police were searching for the suspect, they began investigating the victim's identity. Although the injuries made the victim unrecognizable from the outside, forensic doctors confirmed that the victim was a woman who had died within 12 hours. This could have been an accident that occurred the night before or early that morning. Based on proportions, they estimated that the victim was about 155 meters tall and over 35 years old. The victim was an urban woman with fair skin, working in an office. The victim had surgical scars and a clear ring mark on the left fingertips. During the autopsy, forensic doctors noticed that the murderer's handling of the body was very delicate and tidy. The two cardboard boxes had no blood stains and were cleaned outside. The police speculated that this was not a simple crime, but a deliberate criminal act. The professional approach and medical knowledge of the perpetrator were evident, surpassing the understanding of others about human body structure and psychology. The police continuously reviewed surveillance videos and quickly recognized the suspect's actions. The suspect took a pair of glasses from a glass case on his waist and put them on. He then began to check the train schedule. This detail led to the conclusion that it was just a pair of reading glasses because the font on the timetable board at the station was very large, but the suspect couldn't read it clearly from a close distance. He also needed to take off his glasses for assistance, a clear sign of presbyopia. Thanks to the habit of attaching the glasses case to the waist, people concluded that the suspect was an elderly person with vision loss, and this old man may have medical knowledge. The incident of a young woman's death and the appearance of a mysterious old man made people curious and wonder about the relationship between the two and why it had developed into such a tragic outcome. The way the suspect moved the box in batches showed that it was extremely heavy for him. Each box weighed about 15 to 18 kg, and one person could not easily move it. Moreover, the box had no handles, making it even more difficult to move. It's unbelievable that an old man could carry two boxes all the way from the crime scene to the station. Next, the police began investigating around the Lamxiang train station. However, there were no traces of the suspect's activities. This made the search difficult and added to the police's concern, as the suspect knew how to evade surveillance and continue to escape. After the suspect's vehicle may have fled the scene to find important witnesses, the police came up with a breakthrough idea. They recalled a communication tool called xianan, a method of sending free text messages from computers to mobile phones. The police decided to use xianan to send messages to all taxi drivers operating in the city of Lamxiang. The message was sent out as a search for clues, asking taxi drivers to check if they were transporting a suspicious elderly passenger carrying a shoulder bag and 2 hardcover boxes between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. on the same day. Not long after the message was sent out, a local taxi driver contacted the police. However, he did not apprehend the suspect. According to his recollection, around 6:50 a.m. that day, he was waiting for work near the train station. His eyes caught sight of a taxi parked in front of him. A man got out of the car, wearing light-colored clothes and a crossbody bag. After leaving the car, he opened the trunk and took out 2 hardcover boxes. The taxi driver recounted that the suspect was about 1.7 meters tall, of average build with a slightly chubby face and thick eyebrows. Their appearance matched the description of the suspect being hunted down. The driver also noted the reason he noticed this car was because it had an out-of-province license plate and was a hatchback type without a rear end. On the body of the car there were 4 letters Hubei Chibi printed quite prominently. The suspect had caught a bus from Chibi, Hubei to Lamxiang, Hubei. This news reached the police, and they immediately shifted the focus of the investigation to Chibi, Hubei. Through investigative work, under the supervision of cameras at an intersection in Chibi, the suspect was finally discovered. Surprisingly, it was only 23 minutes before the suspect appeared at the Lamxiang station. Shortly afterward, the driver witnessed a secret conversation between the suspect and a man dressed in black. Within 2 minutes, the two left the scene together. The police quickly identified from the surveillance system that the man in black was the suspect. The taxi driver found the suspect through the license plate information. The driver of the car recounted that he had transported a passenger to Lamxiang. Before departing, we stopped by the Agricultural Bank of China in Chibi. I delivered 2 boxes there before heading to Lamxiang. The police found that the Agricultural Bank of China was located on the main road, with the city government to the northwest and the Broadcasting and Television Bureau opposite. Both are government agencies, with no nearby residential areas. I just transported 2 boxes to this bank. In Chibi, there is also a train station, but the suspect did not bring the box there but went directly to Lamxiang. Perhaps Lamxiang holds special significance for him and the deceased. However, without surveillance, no previous traces of the suspect could be found. This ended the existing leads. They realized that traces of the suspect could be found from the strange, corpse-containing boxes. A large carton box with the inscription Lanju drew particular attention. Suspiciously, this product was only distributed in Zhejiang, Sichuan, and Jiayu, Hubei. Jiayu is more than 100 kilometers away from Chibi, which is a crucial clue. After a detailed investigation, an important lead was gathered. On the day of the incident, a taxi from Jiayu had arrived in Chibi. The driver recounted transporting a mysterious man carrying 2 strange boxes. This passenger was said to be from Jiayu, and from there, both leads pointed to Jiayu County, a small district along the Dujiang River. The police continued to scrutinize the situation in Jiayu and found that the funeral industry was quite strong in this area. Jiayu District, located in the middle and lower reaches of the Dujiang River, often experienced many drowning accidents, leading to many bodies being brought here. This created an inadvertent connection between the funeral industry and rescue operations in Jiayu. In particular, a profession emerged and became indispensable in the area, that of undertakers. Those working in this industry, also known as funeral workers, were tasked with makeup and arranging funeral ceremonies, handling issues related to corpses after death. With such a unique job, these people had long been in contact with the deceased. Over time, fear and resistance disappeared, replaced by familiarity and calmness with the frightening scenes in the living space of departed souls. They completed their tasks calmly and accurately. At this point, the police bravely made a bold conjecture. They realized that if these 2 characteristics could be met simultaneously, then the murderer must surely be working in the funeral industry. With the information compiled about the suspect's appearance, they began the hunt in Jiayu County. And the result was, in a surveillance footage, someone recognized the person discarding the mysterious corpse. This man was none other than Uncle Lee, a renowned undertaker in the locality. The title Uncle Lee was respected and revered, and his real name was Li Maovu. The police swiftly arrested Li Maovu locally. Upon arrest, he even wore clothes similar to those in the surveillance video. Li Maovu, 69 years old, born in 1941, had a son. However, looking at him, it was hard for anyone to recognize him as a nearly 70-year-old man. But the question arises, why would he commit such brutal murders at this age? Before retiring, Li Maovu had worked at the post office. His wife passed away a year before the incident, leaving him alone in a desolate house. Neighbors were mostly former colleagues who had worked together for decades at their former workplace. But they spoke highly of Li Maovu. He was regarded as cheerful and approachable. After retiring, he refused to accept an ordinary life and wanted to earn money by working. But no one could have imagined that within the seemingly cheerful and sociable person lay such darkness and crime. Li Maovu, a nearly 70-year-old man, chose the shocking and dangerous path of becoming a funeral worker in Jiayu County. Although his family opposed and did not want him to do this job, with determination to enter this industry, he overcame all obstacles. Every month, he earned 5,000 yuan just from this job. Despite finding a second spring in his career, loneliness still lingered in Li Maovu's heart. One late night, as he walked home passing through a street filled with secret massage parlors, offering illicit services. Unable to resist the allure of the street, Li Maovu was invited into one such massage parlor. That's where he met Sun, a woman 30 years his junior. From there, Li Maovu became a regular client of Sun, and a whirlwind romance blossomed between them. To maintain the relationship between an older man and a younger woman, Li Maovu had to spend a lot of money to please Sun. Additionally, with significant income and a youthful appearance, he attracted Sun. Sun responded positively, affirming that age was not important and that the most important thing was love. She expressed willingness to continue communicating with him, and frequently visited Li Maovu's house to do laundry and cook. These actions made Li Maovu feel warm and cared for Sun even more. Li Maovu confessed that since his wife's passing, Sun was the only woman he trusted in the world. He had used all his savings to please her. They even planned to get married in September 2010. However, Li Maovu's trust was shattered when Sun suddenly decided to leave him, citing his old age and unsuitability. Furious, Li Maovu continued to demand a more justifiable reason. Finally, Sun had to admit that she still worked as a masseuse and was preparing to go to Guangzhou to further her career. To make Li Maovu give up, she revealed even more heartbreaking truths. She already had a husband and child and couldn't marry him. Li Maovu was enraged and felt deceived. He had poured all his emotions and spent nearly 80,000 yuan on this woman after many difficult years, even though his family did not support it. As a result, he lost both money and hope due to Sun's deception. Great shame and offense spread in Li Maovu's mind. Negative emotions arose and turned into hatred. Eventually, the intention to kill emerged in him. On the night of July 22, 2010, Li Maovu called Sun to his house. Sun entered the spacious bathroom, just over 3 square meters, and began to bathe. Meanwhile, Li Maovu tightly grasped a hammer and struck a powerful blow, causing her to fall. Sun's body was disposed of and placed in wooden boxes in the bathroom. Early the next morning, he threw the remaining parts of the body into the river near his house. Although the police later hired a salvage team to search, with high water levels and floods occurring, there was no hope of finding the body. Li Maovu continued to move the 2 boxes full of guilt. "I just wanted to take them as far away as possible. First they went to Chibi, but it seemed not far enough. I boarded a bus and went to Lam Huang, but it still wasn't enough. Finally, I decided to take a train, to go even further. As for the remaining parts, he put them in 2 wooden boxes and planned to take them to another province for disposal. Mental illness was believed to be the cause or the result of erratic behavior. But for Li Maovu, it was all just overthinking. In reality, only fools were not afraid. Finally, after 56 tense hours, this brutal case was announced, shocking the entire region. Crimes do not discriminate by age, and those who commit crimes will face punishment from both individuals and society. Li Maovu, who committed heinous acts, became the oldest prisoner in the prison. According to Article 17 of the Criminal Law of the People's Republic of China, the criminal responsibility age is from 16 years old and above and will be strictly punished according to the law. 1 year after the incident, on April 11, 2011, Li Maovu was charged with intentional homicide. After the first instance trial, he was sentenced to death and deprived of political rights for life. Moreover, he had to pay compensation to the victim's family in the related civil lawsuit. The total amount of compensation and funeral expenses amounted to 299,194.5 yuan, but Li Maovu refused to accept and appealed. On June 11, 2012, the second instance court upheld the original verdict against Li Maovu, including both criminal and civil parts. However, the sentencing part of the verdict was withdrawn. Ultimately, Li Maovu was convicted to life imprisonment and then 18 years. Currently, he has surpassed the age of 82 and is still serving his sentence at Xianan prison in Hubei province. His current sentence lasts until April 2034. And this is today's case. Do you have any thoughts to share? Leave a comment below. Chinese Crimes will continue to analyze real cases in China in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to support us. For now, goodbye and see you soon.